Hey guys, Darren Kelly, Coach of Wise Pods, and welcome back to another Captain's video heading into round 20. It's going to be an interesting weekend of fantasy football with a shitload of captain options that we need to address and that we need to decipher of who's going to be the best option this weekend. Because the fixture isn't great, I'll be honest. Like, we got tonight, Hawks, Colton is super not fantasy relevant, so wouldn't need to worry about your picks at all, really. Tonight, I would be very surprised if you've got anyone, unless you're still rolling with a Doherty or a Chera. So, besides that, realistically, no one else is in there. But, yeah, quickly looking at how we went last week. Let's have a quick look. Wasn't the greatest week. 123rd overall. Okay sort of selections, but no, missed a lot of those big ones. So, you need your Daicoses and Nasai's. Didn't have any of them in my top 5. Got let down a little bit by Dawson and Golden. So yeah, overall it wasn't too bad, but we still managed to move up in the rankings. I am now 3rd overall, which is pretty pleasing, but still a fair margin away from those top 2 guys. They are absolutely killing it at the moment, and it's going to take a fair bit to catch them in the next 5 weeks, but we'll see how we go. But let's get into what my captain selections are this week. I won't take too much of your time. But let's see how we go. But non-surprisingly, I think we all know where the first selection is going to be. It is the man of the hour, and that is Nick Daicos. I think we all know why. He's up against Richmond, a very favourable matchup for a lot of midfielders, but also designated kick-out players, which he sort of fits in both camps, in my opinion. He's recently moved back into that half-back role, where he's getting a bit of a rest. We know he can absolutely rack up back there, and he is very damaging with the ball, and he demands the ball a fair bit. So there is no issues with him at this point in time. He averages 103 against Richmond in his career, which is only 3 matches against them. His last score against them was a 128, so he does have some good scoring history against them. And just listen to some of the scores that we've seen against Richmond for designated kick-out players. So you've got a Archie Roberts with a 120, Guthrie with a 125, Hinge 113, a Blakey with 133, a Nick Martin with a 166, and even a Lockie Whitfield with a 119. They're just the designated kick-out players. But then you've also got the midfielders. So you've got I can't even know who I'm talking about. Marcus Bontempelli with a 120, Zach Merritt with a 149. So there's just some pretty big scores in there for midfielders as well. So I'm expecting a very good score from Nick Daicos. He's chasing a Brownlow as well. I feel it just, while there's nothing been confirmed out of Collingwood in terms of them giving more points to Nick Daicos and trying to help him get to a Brownlow, you could just feel the vibe around the club and around watching them is that they're doing everything they can possible to give him as many touches as possible to be able to give him all the votes that are there available. So I think he will just go absolutely amazing in this game. It could be a big one. So here's an easy one that we can roll our C on, with the second last game of the round. So definitely can have a pretty good ceiling with him, and the line's going to be set pretty high this weekend. So here is my number 1 by far. Number 2, I have got the man that has been a little bit underwhelming in Bailey Smith. Obviously, with his last 3, he's only been averaging 87. With some tougher matchups, and even when he's played against North Melbourne previously, which was obviously before his time at Geelong, he only scored a 78. I'm just expecting a big score from Baz. He's been a bit down the last couple of weeks, as I said, with whether it's through illness or whatnot. He just hasn't been getting it done, but I feel like this is the game that's going to be like, I'm still here, I'm still a chance of the Brownlow, and I'm expecting a big score from him. So he could be another very good VC, as we know, been super stable all year, besides the last couple. He also had a 147 against them back in 2022, obviously being back at the likes of Western Bulldogs. So he doesn't mind the matchup when he comes up against North. So, and North are one of the easiest matchups for midfielders. They are number 3 in the last 5. So North are very easy matchups. Just listen to the scores. You got Isaac Heaney, 166 last week. One of the best games we've ever witnessed from a single player. Tom Liberatore and Marcus Bontempelli both went 133 and 138. So 2 big scores there. Caleb Sarong, Andy Brayshaw, 146 and 136. So again, 2 massive scores. And even before that, Ned Long and Nick Daicos went 129 and 132. So they do not care about giving points up to midfielders. So he should get it done, along with his teammate in Max Holmes should both get it done. Yeah, I haven't slotted Max Holmes into my top 10 just because there are so many options this week. It's just so hard, but he could easily slot in at any single point. If, Bailey Swift was suddenly a late out, he would easily slot into this top 2 spot for me. It's just so tight with them. I could see both of them going 130 plus in this game, so both should be potential to be there. So have a think about that one. Number 3, I've got the likes of Max Gawn. Again, had a tougher month of football with some very tough matchups. I think he's ready to explode. He scored a 107 against St Kilda early in the year. That was obviously against Royal Marshall. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference now with Marshall and Heath in the team, assumingly that Heath is going to be named again. We'll wait and see what happens there. But he does average on the dot 100 over his 16 games that he's versed against St Kilda. Obviously, with varying ruckman that has been through that club throughout his career so far. And he had a 152 against Royal Marshall last year as well. So definitely doesn't mind the matchup against him. Royal Marshall, St Kilda itself is the second best matchup for ruckman in the last 5. And just, again, listen to some scores. Brody Grundy, 126. Lloyd Meek, 138. Darcy Cameron, 128. And Tim English, 120. All of these guys are pretty established ruckmen and all capable of scoring well on their day. You think Max Gawn is in a different caliber to a lot of those ruckmen, very on par to, a Grundy and an English. So this should be a walk-up 120 for a Brody Grundy. For a Max Gawn. I don't know why I keep getting those two mixed up. It is terrible. But yeah, he should have another massive game. And why I have been pretty big on advocating for him this week. So he'll be a very good one if you're grabbing him in. And does play the last game of the round. So he's a super safe one that you can roll into. If you do want to have a sneaky look at Nick Daicos, you will only get to see, a half of football, unfortunately, only being an hour with difference between the two games, unfortunately. So if you do want to play a bit more risky and go on Nick Daicos as a VC, you can roll into Max Gawn as a safer C option there if that's how you want to play it. But I think Nick Daicos is pretty safe as it is. Number 4, I have got the Caleb Sarong in the West Coast matchup. It's just a super filthy matchup at this stage. West Coast are the easiest matchup for midfielders in the last 5. It's just massive scores. However, the only sort of slight flag in why he's a bit further down is just the fact that the West Coast, and obviously it's a derby, right? So you got Freo and West Coast Eagles playing each other, and West Coast generally get up for these sort of games and become a bit more restrictive. So the likes of your Sarongs and Brayshaws don't quite have massive scores when it comes to this matchup, even though historically they've been quite easy. So Sarong only scored 100 when they played against them early in the year. He did cop a little bit of attention in that game. I can't remember exactly who. It could have been a Hoff at that stage, which could potentially happen again, but I'm doubtful. Hoff hasn't been tagging for a little while, but I wouldn't be surprised if they deploy it in this game. But Sarong does average 93 against West Coast across his 9 career games against them. Obviously, they play them twice every single year, so he does play them a fair lot. And he hasn't scored massively in the last 4. That hasn't really hit over a ton, so hasn't really done super amazingly. But I just think the matchup is that good at the moment that I'm expecting a good score from a Sarong, and we have seen when he does have these really good matchups where he doesn't cop attention, he just absolutely goes ballistic. So I'm expecting a good score from him. Again, some scores. Timmy Taranto and Jacob Hopper both went 120 plus. Zach Butters 125, Finn Callahan 120, Nick Daicos 137, sorry. Bailey Smith 147, and Jordan Dawson 139 as well. So some massive scores for some pretty elite midfielders, which Caleb Sarong is a part of. So expecting a big score from him in that matchup. My final one, I have just thrown in Max Holmes, just doing a bit of shuffling there. Max Holmes is number 5 for me. Again, I expect both Bailey Smith and Max Holmes to go pretty well in this matchup, as I said. So again, he could go absolutely massive in there. It's just whether you want to go with a Bailey Smith or Max Holmes. I just feel like Bailey Smith has that slight bit more of a ceiling and consistency. Obviously, Max Holmes does drop 80s on the regular at this stage. But I think he'll be fine. So he is my number 5. Following on from that, number 6, I do have Brody Grundy. He just misses out. The only real factor with him missing out, even though he is averaging 125 in his last 5, something ridiculous like that, and averages 110 against the likes of GWS in his career, and that's across 15 games. He definitely doesn't mind them at all. He only scored a 60 against them early in the year, which was his worst score this season. And it didn't look like there was any sort of injury affected to that. He did play full game time. It was lower, 76%, but there was no real concern there. Just only had 8 touches and a couple tackles there. So just really didn't get it done. Giants are the 4th easiest matchup for Ruckman so far in the last 5, or in the last 10, however you want to look at it. However, that's obviously a little bit skewed because Briggs has been in and out of the side a little bit with his injury. But when you look at just the scores that have been against Briggs, there haven't been these massive scores consistently, right? You've got the likes of Tim English, who went 124, and Blitzovs that's gone 116. That's about it in all the games that have been against Briggs. Even, the likes of a Max Gorn only went like a 102 against him or something like that. So there's been no real huge scores, and that's just the reason why he's dropped down a little bit. I do believe he could go be massive in this game. Obviously, he's been the best probably player in the last sort of 10 weeks or so. So again, could easily expect a 110 from him. He does play on the Friday night, so you could do a VC on there. I'm just not sure the ceilings there in this matchup, but definitely could be. The only other thing I would be aware of is check forecast. If it's a bit wet, that could, hinder here and there. Both, in one side it could be more contested, but the other side, they're not going to be the ones to get a lot of the touches because the ball's just going to be rolling around and stuff. So it could be work both ways, so just be careful of that one. Number 7, I have Josh Dunkley. Now, he's obviously been in some ripping form in the last couple of weeks. He obviously has the likes of Gold Coast this weekend, which we are believing it's going to be wet in that game, I believe. So that means there's going to be plenty of tackles. He's went 106 against them early in the year. Obviously, tackles and numbers are up recently. Josh Dunkley himself has gone back-to-back 130s, I believe, so he's just absolutely killing it at this stage. He has not dropped below 100 against Gold Coast since 2021, and just listen to some of the scores that he has scored against them in that time. 106 was his last score, 128, 151, 137, 125, a flat 100, and a 151. So he loves this matchup quite simply, so he should be a very viable captain option if you want to go there. As an earlier VC option, he does play the first game on Saturday, so it shouldn't have any problems with that looping options. Gold Coast itself have been a really easy matchup for majority of the year. However, they are starting to become a bit tougher in the last 5. They went from being the number 1 easiest matchup for midfielders. Now they're down at 9th or 10th realistically. So they are falling away. The only good score against them in the last 5 has been Zach Merritt with 145. So they are starting to drop away in terms of that easy matchups. We've seen the likes of Nick Daicos fail, Jordan Dunkley just in the last 2. Both didn't hit the ton, so that's sort of why I've got Josh Dunkley a little bit ways down, even though his history is amazing. And also I'm still starting to only learning to just trust Josh Dunkley again after his poor form throughout the year. I wouldn't be surprised if it drops away at some stage again. Number 8, I have got the Bont. He is very highly owned in the top 5, or in this captain selection. He scored 101 against them early in the year. He's averaging 135 in his last 3, so he's absolutely on a tear at the moment. However, it is his worst matchup in his career. So he only averages 87 against them across 14 matches in his career, and just hasn't had huge ceilings against them at all in his career. But the reason why he's number 8 on my list is that I just think Essendon is such an easy matchup at this stage. They love to give up that transition ball, a lot of turnovers and kickouts, which Bontempelli typically gets a lot of the ball from that sort of field. Plus, obviously, the stoppage work and does get on the scoreboard. So I just think with the easy matchup for midfielders, Essendon are the second easiest matchup for midfielders and number one for designated kickouts. I just think he gets it done. You know, you've got Caleb Sarong with a 137 and Noah Anderson with a 122, Tim Taranto with a 132, and Tom Green with a 110 as well, just in the last five. So Bontempelli should be a walk-up 120 in this game. However, if I read out the scores that he has scored against Essendon in his career, there's nothing amazing. There's the only big score he's got against them is a 128. Besides that, everything is around that 10. Everything is below a 103, which is amazing. He's even had a low 113 for whatever reason. So there is just some slight flags there, so be careful of that. But again, a very good VC option on the Friday night for all the good reasons. And all his teammates are pretty unlucky to miss out on my top 10. You know, you've got like the likes of Ed Richards, that could be great. Again, loves the transition ball. Tom Liberatore, again, tackles upper at this stage. He's getting plenty of that. Even Matthew Kennedy, I don't know if we're going there just because we have better ceiling players at this stage. But again, should all be great in this matchup. Number 9, I've got the man that is unstoppable at this stage, and that is Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera. He scored 117 against the likes of Melbourne earlier in the year. Has a last 5 of 120 just with how well he's been going. So again, just based on those two numbers alone, it's very stiff that he hasn't made my top 5. I just have a slight concern that Ned Langdon is going to tag him this week. I don't see a world where they're not going to tag him. Just because while this isn't a game where, or a matchup where two teams are fighting for finals, it's two teams that are sort of trying to hold on to whatever they can for the remainder of the season, whether that's, you know, just trying to get a win just so that the coach's job stays safe and secure so they don't get rid of them. Just there's things on the line, even though it doesn't probably feel like it as much. So I think there has to be a tag in this matchup. So Nasiah is probably going to cop that, but while I still think he's a good captain option, is that he does not care. I think he's so athletic and so aerobic that he can be thrown wherever on the ground, whether it's off halfback, in the middle, or half forward. I'm just not sure if Ed Langdon's going to be able to go with him in all those sort of positions. So I think wherever he goes, he's going to find and demand the pill. So I still think he's going to be an amazing pick. And I have disrespected the man throughout the year so far, and he has been amazing. He's actually the most total points scored so far this season, which is amazing to me. So yeah, I still think he's a great option. He does average 101 against Melbourne in his career, which is across 4 games, and it is his 4th favourite matchup. So yeah, definitely a worthwhile. The only other flag I had against Melbourne is that the largest score against Melbourne in the last 10 has been a 117. So it hasn't had these big, massive ceilings that we're probably expecting this time of year. It's probably a safer option. But and again, he does play the last game of the round. So definitely a viable C option if you want to go there as a bit of a safer fullback option. Definitely worthwhile. And number 10, I have got Timmy English. So yeah, it's hard to go against this man as well. He's been so underrated this year. Against Goldstein, he scored a 102 early in the year, so it should just be a pretty safe 100 and does have the ceiling to go 120 plus. But however, he has a last 3 average of 112, so again, on a pretty good run at the stage. And the only flag I really had against for this matchup is that the only big score against Todd Goldstein in the last sort of 10 scores was a Tom De Koning with a 121. Besides that, Luke Jackson scored that 144, but that wasn't against Goldstein. That was against Vizentini when Goldstein got a bit of a rest. So yeah, there just hasn't been the scoring data against Goldstein to prove that he is an easier matchup, even though on paper it feels like he is, just because of the age profile, and Tim English is obviously a very aerobic ruckman. He should get it done around the ground, so I could see the chance of him going massive in this game. So that is my top 10 captains. I guess some that I should mention that I haven't included. Obviously, Luke Jackson, if there is news that Sean Darcy doesn't play and gets rested, he definitely would jump up in my rankings. Probably not enough to be inside my top 10, just because, again, he's been a bit underwhelming, but again, that could mostly be due to the role that he's playing as more of a forward rather than as a ruckman. So I'll have to dive into that a little bit more. I haven't really looked at it too much this weekend, just with obviously plenty of other options that we had to assess. So I'm just staying clear of that. Again, I think we have better options than a Luke Jackson this weekend, even if Sean Darcy is out. So just avoiding that one. Jack Steele, I still think he's a great trading target. I just don't know if I'm going there with the captaincy. Again, he plays the last game of the round. And obviously the same flag as again for Nasai and Miller. Just the scores haven't been there for against Melbourne so far in the last 10. They've been quite restrictive in terms of their ceiling. But I do think it'll be a very safe sort of 105, 110 for Jack Steele. And obviously the likes of St Kilda are a very good fantasy side where they all sort of score points and love to rack up. So I could see a world where they could break that pattern against Melbourne. So stay tuned. Jordan Dawson against Port Adelaide, obviously at the showdown, I could easily see him going pretty massive as well. Obviously, both captains generally get up for these sort of games. He has known to be the match winner against against Port Adelaide previously. But again, he's just been a bit underwhelming in the last sort of 4 to 6 weeks, just up and down. I wouldn't back against the Port with the tougher matchup, so I'm just staying away. Not going Heaney against GWS, just too tough a matchup as well. Sam Darcy, against Essendon could have a field day. Could easily be a massive day for him, kicking 6 or 8. However, I looked into the scores of the last 10 key forwards against North, and the highest score I could find was just a flat 100. So I'm just not sure if I see a big 130 coming his way. Definitely could be proven wrong. Obviously, Sam Darcy is a massive talent, and I struggle to see who's going to be able to go with him from Essendon. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. So he's still a very good option if you want to go with just a cheeky VC on him on Friday night. And we're getting into very, very unique areas, so I'll sort of stop there, I think. So this is my top 5. Let me know what you guys think, and let me know down below what you guys are doing this weekend. Maybe I've missed someone that you would have normally gone for. But what am I doing? I'm more than likely going to go Bailey Smith into Daicos. I did originally was looking at Marcus Bontempelli as a VC on Friday night, but since doing a bit more research, obviously with the history of him not scoring well against them, he's a little bit lower down my list. So I'm just going with my number 1 and 2, back in my captains, and hoping I'm going to get a decent 130 this weekend. I think that's probably about my line. So if I get a 130 from a Bailey Smith, I will take it. If I get anything a bit lower than that, I maybe get convinced into a 125, but I think Daicos should easily have a 130 plus in him in this matchup. So fingers crossed for some very good captains this weekend. Captains are very important this time of year because it does make up the point difference where not a lot of other positions do. But my trades, again, still haven't changed. We'll wait and see what happens with team announcements very shortly. So, yeah, hopefully you guys have a good weekend. Again, let me know if you have any questions down below. I will be answering them tonight before the game, and definitely will be answering them before tomorrow night's game. So, yeah, have any questions, drop them down below. But besides that, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed. Please leave a like, subscribe, do all those great things, and I will see you for next weekend. Next week. Cheers, guys. Bye.